you look into ideas that are worth spreading and look at the stories behind them, you find people with magnificent obsessions. You find people with brave hearts, vision and purpose, that go to work and get things done. We've heard some of them tonight. I'm awestruck by Paul and by Bernard and what they do. The modern Olympic movement was founded by a small little Frenchman by the name of Pierre de Coubertin. And his evolution of his ideas started out innocently enough with an inquiry into how to improve children's education in France. And he was intrigued by what the British were doing, using competitive play and sport to invigorate their youth, fill them up with capacity to send them out into the world faster, higher, and stronger. He also studied the ancient Greek culture and how they embraced and celebrated a virtue called arete. And what arete is, translated, it's excellence inside you that's bound by the fulfillment of a purpose, living up to your full potential, a virtue that's embodying being the best that you can be. So he took new ideas and he forged them with ancient old ideas into a fresh idea that became an idea worth spreading, worth doing, worth repeating for the last 115 years. And from the very beginning, he always believed that sport was a curriculum and a tool for a higher means and a higher regard. And I'm living proof of that. I met my wife at the Olympics, and we have 3 daughters, so you could say it's an eternal legacy for our family. But in any event, he also believed that competitive play and sport brought out the best in us, brought out arete. The whole American narrative, free, fair, open competition, is our economic story. It's what's made American great. It's a competitive greatness. In some way, shape, or form, this is a very self-actualized audience. We're all athletes out there in the game of life trying to elevate our contribution to the team. In his 2011 State of the Union address, President Obama challenged us as a nation to go win the future. And he said we need to out-educate, we need to out-innovate, and we need to out-build our global competitors. Last several years has given us pause, though, however, into American what and American how as we dig deeper into the whys and the why we do what we do. We're still the richest nation on earth by far, but we're understanding this big distinction between success and fulfillment. As a 20th century athlete, America was a superstar of success. In the 21st century, we're still trying to get our mojo back and find that arete and that meaning. Obama said, this is our Sputnik moment. And what Sputnik was the first Earth-orbiting satellite put into space in 1957 by the Russians, our competitor. And it was a competitive challenge which activated several decades worth of innovation in all kinds of different ways. Obama's reference to it and what it represented was for us, it's a historical reference, but what it means to all of us when you hear Sputnik moment, it basically is a challenge to you to get your game on. Now, every athlete knows that to compete at the highest level, you got to be healthy and you got to be fit. This is an ad that could have appeared last week as a public service ad 10 years ago, 20 years ago. This was 50 years ago. This was put out in 1960. Then President-elect Kennedy wrote an article in Sports Illustrated, and he was referencing a 15-year study that showed the decline of American youth and their fitness. And it was called The Soft American. And in it, he referenced how the Greeks prized physical fitness, and he understood it as a prime foundation to a vigorous state. And he said, to realize our full potential, we need to know what the Greeks know, that hardy minds and hardy spirits and tough minds reside within a sound body that's healthy, fit, and strong. We cannot let this generation grow up to be spectators. This is a new frontier, and we got to get our kids healthier. Well, the unfortunate thing is we didn't really heed Kennedy's call. And welcome to death, disease. We've heard a lot of this. We know about this. 7 out of 10 people die in this country because of lifestyle-related diseases. Diseases attached to your behavior. We eat too much. What do we eat? What kinds of things do we eat? We heard Robin talk about that. We need to move more. Do we smoke? Do we drink? And in this world of abundance, how we manage this mentally and deal with the stress and the biochemistry that creates. These are diseases of a modern era. And we've passed this torch on to our kids. Born in the USA now means that you have a shorter life expectancy than your parents. 1 in 2 of our kids, your kids, my kids, are going to get heart disease, 1 in 2.5 cancer, 1 in 3 diabetes. And it gets worse, and the stats keep compounding. Obesity, asthma, allergies, ADD, the trend lines are like this, and they're going up. These are the top 10 drugs that we bought in 2007, or rather the underlying physical conditions that those top 10 drugs address and try to band-aid. Not addressing root causes at all. All of these attached to behavioral and lifestyle, things that we do. In 2010 alone, the top 20 drugs, we spent $130 billion on what were virtually all lifestyle-related diseases. We are hemorrhaging our economic prosperity. This was a stunning economic forecast put out by the Milken Institute. And what they did was they grew GDP out over the next 40 years to 2050, gross domestic product, with healthcare growing out at the same rate, with some modest improvements in the intervention of disease. And then they played what if, and they said, what if we actually chose to stand up and win the future and invested in WellCare and invested in the ROI of prevention? What would that economy look like? And they looked at the differential between those two forecasts. I want you to imagine in your mind the cumulative net effect that the Milken Institute came up out over the next 40 years. I want you to put that number in your mind, and it's going to blow you away when I put up this number. $100 trillion of lost economic prosperity, lost economic output. And for those of you who think that those people with diseases and those people that are unhealthy choose that lifestyle, and that's not me, understand that the economics of it all connect us all. We've become the poster child for a lifestyle of excess, and we are realizing sort of the economic triage of it all. And it's become malignant, and it's factoring out all over the world. You heard a lot about infectious diseases from the bottom 5 billion. Well, as it turns out, 60% of all disease and death in the world happens from lifestyle-related diseases. And the epic global myth in urban or in public health is that these are diseases of affluence in developed countries. Turns out, 80% of all death in our world occurs in urban communities, in ethnic communities that are middle income, low income, poor income. So what are we supposed to do? Where are we supposed to go when we fundamentally need as a nation, as a country now, which is an urban world? Where are we supposed to go when we need a cultural transformation, a lifestyle transformation? About 4 or 5 years ago, I was speaking at the National Mensa Conference. And for those of you who don't know what Mensa is, your IQ has to be in the top 2% in the world to be a part of this society. Rest assured, I'm not a member. I knew a physician who was. I got the gig. The title on my talk I was very proud of. The title on my talk, I was talking about health and vitality. The title of my talk was Duh. Very proud of that. Take away from that, I got to tell you, it was a Twilight Zone experience because this audience had the intellectual horsepower, but they were probably the most unhealthy audience that I've ever spoken to. They had the knowledge intellectually, and what the takeaway was is health in the modern era, health in the 21st century is a learned skill. It is an adaptive trait. It is an acquired doing, and we have to train that over time into habit. Until healthy, active lifestyle and the literacy found in doing that in the modern era is placed on par with reading, writing, and arithmetic in our public school system, we are going to be forever disabling the next generation. At best, and at worst, we're just going to be rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic. Translated, that's putting health and fitness class back into public education, K through 12, 5 days a week. Because we know what the Greeks know, right? We can't push rope on this, though, because this has to be a cultural mandate. We have to make it so. The spinal tap into a kid's why is culture. It's pop culture. Pop culture's got to get involved in this. We've got to romance children into healthy lifestyle and vigor. It's got to be attractive. It's got to be cool and hip in the way we roll as a society. Melinda Gates spoke to, because here's what culture does. Culture takes and trains habit into existence unconsciously. And that's what we need. Melinda Gates spoke to this in her TED Talk when she said we need to look to the levers of culture to transform public health. America needs cultural leadership. We need functional vocational training every day with kids to develop that habit. Competition's not going to wait for us. Faster competition, stronger competition, higher competition. And there's two kinds of competition. There's competition that beats you down and breaks you up, and there's competition that brings you to life and brings out the best in you, and there's a joy found in that effort. Enter the Olympic movement, Citius, Fortius, Altius. It's the motto of the Olympic Games, faster, higher, stronger. An organization for 115 years that was created out of one thing, to use sport to build a peaceful and better world, to put sport at the service of humanity, to use it as a tool to go do something, using competitive play. I want to give you a case study of what I think is the finest execution of a host nation taking on these games, being a steward of that mission in a clearly defined way. Lillehammer hosted the 1994 Winter Olympic Games, and about a decade prior, they set off trying to find their own Olympic why. And they studied their culture, and they looked to their people, and what was resonating, that was sacred, and of high value to them was the environment. And what they did with the environment is they made it their arete, they made it their reason for being. And they embedded it into the procurement, the planning, the philosophy, the narrative, the decision-making into the Olympic Games, and they hosted the first ever environmental games. And it stands as a legacy today. Henceforth, every city that's bidding on the Olympic Games has to submit an entire chapter that is their environmental plan. They put environment into the Olympic movement. Do you think America could do something like that if it decided to get back in the game? Take on something that is of importance to us as a nation, important to the world, and use sport as a tool to go do something, to carry a torch in a brighter way, which is the Olympic movement. The reason for being is a brighter movement to the Olympic movement. America finds itself trying to sort of get its game back, trying to find its groove. The hardest thing for an athlete to do is maintain that level of competitiveness, to tap into that level of desire. Dan Jansen was an American speed skater who was the gold medal favorite at 2 separate Olympic Games. And he fell back-to-back in 2 separate games. He came into the 3rd Olympics, and he won a gold medal. And this is what champions do. They persevere. Within the next year, America's got to decide if it's going to get into the race for 2022. The United States Olympic Committee has to make that decision. Then they got to pick a city and a partner and a winning horse that they think can win. 2:13, the race begins. 2:15, the city is selected. So it's on. Make no mistake, it's on. There's an effort underway in this town to carry the torch for 15. What if we as Americans could do the same thing that Norway did with the environment? What if we chose to steward health into our country, steward health into the Olympic movement? Can you think of a city that carries healthy lifestyle and sport? Can you think of a city that embodies vigor and vitality? Can you think of a city who could walk the talk through 222 and beyond and show the world how to roll in this conversation and have it become a cultural mandate for us as a community? Bidding on the Olympic Games is what great cities do. It's what great countries do. If we have the good fortune to be selected as America's choice, what if we used that as our Sputnik moment? What if it galvanized our arete as a community and our will and resolve to activate sport for a healthier generation, to put sport at the service of humanity and train up a whole generation in our backyard? What if we became the first state, the first community to reverse the trends of childhood obesity, to reverse the trends of chronic disease? We would be the first city. That's like breaking the 4-minute mile in public health. A lot of people say it's going to take a miracle for all of those pieces to come together. Look, the miracle on ice was not a miracle, okay? It was an execution in team around a mission and a goal and a vision. I got your back, okay? What is your arete? What is your live Olympic moment? What is your live arete? I believe that elevating sport for a healthier generation is an idea worth spreading, a game worth playing, and a race worth winning. It's my obsession. But I need your help to make it magnificent. So with that, Team Mile High, If you're looking for a pickup game to play and you're a citizen on the sidelines, you got to get on the court because it's game on. Thank you.